Oh, we are setting it off this week with an ass kicking. No, not me putting my foot so far up a YouTube auditor's ass that he'll be flossing with my shoelaces. But with Kratos slicing shit up all week long, it's Sony exclusives week. 5 games that can only be found on the PlayStation 3. Some good, some bad, all owned by Sony Studios. And to kick it off for the week, we might as well start right at the top with God of War 3, the semi-sort of finale to the series, although I highly doubt we won't see Kratos at some point on PlayStation 4. God of War 3 was the conclusion to the treachery and deception of the gods. That sounds pretty catchy, right? I read that shit right off the back of the box, motherfucker. But anyway, the story is very simple. Kratos is about to fuck everyone up. For those of you who didn't get the pleasure of playing God of War series, the premise is that the gods are fucking over Kratos at any chance they can get, and he wants his revenge. That's it. Moral of the story, plenty of shit in between that, but Kratos is one pissed off motherfucker. Say something wrong to him, and he will beat your shit in. Say something about his family, he will beat your shit in. Say something about a god wearing makeup, walking around in fucking wrestling tights, he will beat your shit in. He's the ultimate badass, and yes, I know the ash on his skin is the ash of his family, motherfucker, so don't go telling me I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. Still doesn't make him look any less of a circus clown who really needs a tan up in this bitch, man. But anyway, here's the thing. Kratos is undeniably a badass motherfucker, but much like Game 2, in order for the game to progress, the opening sequence requires you to get knocked all the way back down to the lowest levels of the game. Why? Because he's a fucking badass motherfucker, that's why. When you play the very first God of War, the original we're talking about, you start with very limited powers, and you earn more powers and weapons throughout the game until you become fully powered at the end. However, when the sequel comes out, you just can't start off fully powered now, can you? No, of course not. Through the events at the end of Part 1 and the start of Part 2, you're now knocked back down to a nooblet level with no powers, and you have to earn your shit all over again. By the end of Game 2, you're fully powered. So, at the start of this game, what happens? After Gaia climbs her big ass up the mountain, after being betrayed yet again by everyone, Kratos is knocked back down the damn mountain to hell or purgatory, whatever the fuck you want to call this place. Now look, I get it. You're not going to give him all his powers from a prior game right at the beginning, because after all, what challenge would that be? Instead, here are some shitty powers that you can rank up again. Here's another set of bonded swords for your arms. Yay! Time to kick some ass all over again. That is pretty much my only beef with this game and this series. Somehow, some way, the game needs to figure out how to strip Kratos of all his powers. Yes, it's needed for the game to progress, but it makes the beginning of each game feel fucking monotonous, man. Other than that, you can't go wrong with the God of War franchise. Well, maybe Ascension, but that's another story that I'll talk about a little bit later. It's a hack and slash game, which is pretty straightforward. Button mash all your powers, try to keep hitting as many enemies as possible in a row to keep your chain going, and do the quick time events to beat the bigger enemies or bosses in the game. It's fairly straightforward. What made this franchise so successful is the presentation of the large-scale boss fights. Sure, all major boss battles and all large-scale enemies boil down to a quick time event of just pressing buttons and shit. But holy fuck, is the cinematic in the background amazing, man. Half the time, you might miss a button or two because you're so focused on seeing the action in the background. You know, it's like, fuck the square button. This motherfucker is ripping that sumbitch's head off. And this game doesn't skimp on the gore or the graphic content either. No, no, no. Slice open a Minotaur and all his organs are going to come flying out. Slice the guard's head off and the blood's going to spurt from his neck like a fountain. And of course, we can't forget about the sex scenes. No God of War game is complete until we see some titties up in this motherfucker. You're damn right. You're bound to see 1, 2, 10 pairs of titties at some point in this game. They don't rate this motherfucker mature for a reason. Now, unfortunately, because I deleted this save data a long time ago to start saving space on my PlayStation 3, figured I would never come back to this game, I didn't have access to the chapters with titties. I wasn't about to play this game for hours just to find a nice pair of fake boobs in the video, so if you're expecting some nipples, just take your shirt off and go look in the mirror. For those of you who have man boobs, you probably see that shit every day anyway, so I'm not going to get into that shit. Now, story-wise, the overall arc from the first to third game in the series is done well. You can tell from at least Part 2 back on PlayStation 2, the game had a defined layout of how they wanted the story to progress, and as you play the game, you see that everyone is out to fuck you over and use you as a pawn. And by the end of the game, you manage to get your revenge on everyone who screwed you over. Titans, gods, didn't matter. Fuck me over, I fuck you up. It's that goddamn simple. At the end of the game, you fight one of the biggest pain in the ass fights ever. Holy shit, did they not make Zeus the most annoying fucking final battle possible? It's not even a skill thing, it's an annoyance factor. Especially in the first part of a 3-part fight. It's a damn good boss fight, but they gave some of the cheapest fucking moves just to piss you off, man. First of all, you start the fight in a Street Fighter Mortal Kombat type match. You know, it's a 2D fight along a ledge and shit like that, where Zeus totally fucks your shit up if you don't learn the pattern. You know, just like an old Street Fighter game, Zeus cheeses the shit out of you. If you fuck up on his pattern just once, just one time, chances are he's gonna exploit that shit and you will stand no chance of beating him over the 3-part fight. Once you get past this first part of the fight, which is the goddamn Mortal Kombat type shit, you have 2 arena style fights that we're all used to. There's a surprise returning character in the middle of the fight, and then you get the ending of the game. Kratos gets his ultimate revenge, and instead of giving in to what another god wants, he impales himself, leaving you with an open-ended conclusion to the game. You certainly get your closure. Kratos defeated all the gods that were fucking him over, and it sure looks like he killed himself at the end of the game, but somehow he manages to crawl away from the arena off screen. You don't know what happens to him, but it leaves the door open for any future sequels if they want to use that shit in the series on PlayStation 4. As far as what games they can use to follow up this one, the developers are going to have a very hard time determining how to use them in the future games. Zeus is dead. The other gods are all dead. He got his revenge, other than maybe using some mythological god from some other religion, like Norse mythology, Hindu mythology, whatever the fuck. There really isn't anybody left for this angry motherfucker to beat up. And the studio is very aware of that. They've already said they're going to be very cautious about what they do to follow up God of War games, because as you know, they do not want to milk a game where the game has already given a nice little bit of closure for the ending. However, the ending is open-ended. They could make a God of War 4, but they're going to be very cautious about what they do. Hence, why you haven't seen God of War 4. Of course, that didn't stop them from making another game and call this God of War Ascension crap. Oh, motherfucker, why? Why do you go out and create something just for the fuck's sake of creating something? You know, God of War 3 was fine. Why fuck with it? Yes, money, I get it. No question about that. But a prequel to a prequel? Really? You already had the Chains of Olympus crap. Why is another prequel sequel needed? I don't fucking know. On top of that, God of War Ascension added multiplayer. The fuck? This game doesn't need multiplayer. It's fine on its own with its own storylines. Granted, the multiplayer wasn't too bad and people actually enjoyed playing that motherfucker. But when Ascension was announced, I let my friend purchase that shit way before I ever purchased that motherfucker. So he gave me the rundown of the content. He said it was like every other game before, except it was pretty much average because you don't have any kind of the gods screwing you over like the way the normal storyline was already doing. So I knew if he was sort of meh to the game, that was a pretty much average game. And he's a God of War fan. He loves all the God of War games. He will wait in line at midnight just to buy this motherfucker. So for him to say it was an average game, I knew it was probably an average game. Now, I went over to his house. I played it a little bit. I got up to the naked ladies. And then I turned it off. I was like, that's it. I saw some titties. I'm good with this shit. I'm not gonna lie, that's exactly what happened. I saw some titties. I said, oh, I'm good. Turn this motherfucker off. So whatever Sony Santa Monica comes up with God of War games in the future, please don't let it be like Ascension. It's gonna need to breathe a bit of life back into the franchise. God of War 3 left on a high note. This game left on a very strong note when it concluded this game. Ascension kind of dragged the series down because it felt too familiar and there was a prequel to a prequel to a prequel, whatever the fuck, some Inception bullshit. So hopefully, whatever we get on PlayStation 4 is bringing in the same way the first 3 games were in the series. I love God of War. I love the story. I love the character. I know that they can still make some great content with the Kratos character. However, it obviously needs to be done correct because you left off God of War 3 with some closure. And if you're going to do Kratos, you got to do that shit right. No more of this Ascension crap. You got to do this joint right like God of War 3 was done right. Anyways, tomorrow, we're going to have some vagina. Y'all see what I mean about that tomorrow, man. But you're gonna get some vagina tomorrow. So anyway, as always, rate, comment, subscribe, and all the good shit. And I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video, which is gonna have vagina.